But then that's very well put, actually, as you mentioned, that there is a neurodivergent section, and we have to, that they're not going to be the same like us. Maybe the people have to kind of see the difference and identify. But as you rightly said, there are a bunch of selfish ones. So is there a way how do you identify them? Because I've seen in my experience, there are people like their CEOs who are so narcissist that they would like to put their picture in the Women's Day or collage as well. So so those are also the scenarios. So is there a way to, I'm sure it's no that I say there are not 10 points to kind of do that, but is there a way to tackle, and how do you kind of I would say coach them or kind of mentor them to be more accommodative and more kinder to the teams, actually? If I would say so.
There are two sides that need to be considered. One is training the CEO, and one is talking to the employees who are suffering under them, right?
Right.
So when I'm talking to the CEO, when I'm looking at balancing that person's life, naturally, one of the major points that come in that we work on is a sense of gratitude, a sense of humility, and if that's lacking, then that needs to be looked at. And that person's life needs to be balanced, because he might be spinning out of control, like you said, putting his photograph in funny places. That is, of course, absurd. And maybe someone just needs to tap the guy on the shoulder and says, "What are you doing, brother? Is this really required? You're already CEO. You don't need your photograph there." So that does help. And that's why that's why I get hired. On the other hand, if you're an employee and you know your personal vision, you know your values, you know your goals, then if you know these and you're being pushed in a direction that contradicts with your values, your goals, your vision, then you need to relook at where you are. And you say, maybe this is not the right place for me to be. And I need to figure out where I can go. Now, if this was 40, 50 years ago, people joined companies as soon as they got out of college. And they stayed with that company till they retired 50 years later.
True.
Or 30 or 40 years later. We don't live in that society anymore. Today's society is blown up. Business is blown up. Opportunities are so many. There's opportunities everywhere. So if you are struggling, you are facing difficulty, you can look at other things instead of sitting there and suffering. You know what I mean? There was a time when if you said, "I like to put makeup on people," you would have been laughed at. Today, there are makeup artists charging 10 lakh rupees, $1 million rupees for just doing up someone's face. There's opportunity everywhere. And now everyone's an influencer on YouTube and Instagram. So lots of there also.
Absolutely. So we have to find out maybe we're in the right place as well or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now moving to another category of leaders, which I'm sure you must have come across, who attends every workshop, quotes all the right frameworks and nods at all the feedback, and then walks back into the office and changes absolutely nothing. What is actually going inside that person, actually?
So this is a very, very thin, small number of people that I have ever come across at the senior level. Most CEOs and senior management people I've come across are dynamic, and they manage to absorb, to learn, to adapt, because that's what gets them to the top. However, I have worked with a few government organizations where people have made it to the top just by being in the system for years. In such cases, yes, I have come across, I think, two CEOs who would attend all trainings and just do what they always did. I'd consider them, they're going to get extinct. It's a question of time. They won't be around. At once, there's certain traits and qualities you have that help you rise up on the ladder. And some of those qualities include adaptability, learning new tools, figuring out how to be more productive, how to delegate. So if you're not learning all those, then you probably are someone's kid who's taken over the organization, or you're in a government setup where you've just grown from being there. Those will get phased out. They won't last much.
Okay, so thankfully there's a very thin or very less population of number of people.
Very few. Not many like that. I mean, I haven't come across such people in maybe in the last 12, 15 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's now I will not leave you there. There's another category of leaders which I want to talk about, the control freak. I'm sure you must have come across them, who genuinely believes that they have the highest standards, but their need to control everything is quite destroying people around them and driving out the best talent. So can that person ever truly change, or is that beyond coaching?
I have come across many high-performing managers and management people who are control freaks. Right. And some of them are neurodivergent. It comes along with anxiety and ADHD, wherein their inner anxiety won't let go and they want to control, and they wind up micromanaging and suffocating people around them. And one thing I know for a fact is that we are all coachable. We are all trainable. If you look at yourself, Kavita, I can just say as a blanket statement that you are not the same Kavita who existed 10 years ago. And you will not be this Kavita 10 years from now. You would change. Your priorities change. And if you look 10 years before that, you would have been a different Kavita. As a kid, you probably cried when you lost a balloon. But you wouldn't care about a balloon. So we all learn, we change. Everybody is coachable. And it's just a question of working with the right people or having the right triggers that make you learn. So yes, control freaks with high anxiety, type A personalities are quite common to have this. I have come across many times. And yes, it is completely trainable, coachable. It's not one of those situations where there's no hope. There's lots of hope.
There's lots of hope. So would you like to, I'm just trying to understand, when you come across these kind of scenarios or these kind of leaders, any particular example which you still remember and you would like to kind of talk about, anyone who's very unique case out, individual who came across, and how did you...
It's, as I mentioned, it's just a question of coaching. You sit down and do some counseling, some coaching with the person, and they need to understand at some level that perfection kills productivity.
Right.
Okay? Non-delegation, that is centralization, kills profits. Making all decisions without delegating destroys adaptability and speed. And in business, you need adaptability. You need speed. You need profits. You need productivity. So you're also killing initiative, right? If someone knows that they can take the decision easily, but no, you have to wait for boss to come, then you're killing that sense of initiative in your employees. And therefore, it's just a question of sitting down, having a few conversations, running a few coaching sessions, and it's easily solvable.
And what kind of coaching do you do for such kind of? If you can just narrate one of the instances, it'll be very interesting.
For sure. So what happens is that most people who fall into this trap, they're not doing it purposely. They're doing it because they have a sense of anxiety and they want things to be perfect and they want to do something good. They want to do something better, right? So when that's the case, someone needs to just sit with them. Like I can give you an example since you asked for an example. I was working with this hotel a few years ago, right here, this side of the world. And the CEO had a habit of checking in on everyone and double and triple checking. So what happened is that the CEO would go down to check every room, make the managers walk with them, ensure that every sheet is still put up. So the CEO thought that she was hands-on. But in effect, she was killing any initiative or any accountability in her own staff, because they felt that they had no accountability. It was just about being pulled up for someone else's mistakes. So what happened was that the turnover in the hotel was very high. And I wound up being called to take a look at that. So when I took a look, I realized that the turnover was not because of low salaries. It was not because of opportunities. It was because the initiative and the sense of ownership that the management had, the middle management, was being killed by the CEO who was micromanaging and controlling everybody. So all we had to do is run a few coaching sessions with the CEO and then coaching sessions with the middle management as well, because they had to learn that, okay, now the CEO is going to be hands off, so you better be hands on.
Right. The accountability has to be.
Yes. And more than accountability, I work on something called ownership. If you own something, that means you are the final response. I mean, the buck stops with you. It's a little more than just being accountable. So we work on the ownership model, and the ownership model makes people take complete responsibility. It's like, finally, it's on them.
And end to end.
Yes, the more you decentralize a setup, the more ownership each person has to take at every level. And that's something that had just happened a couple of years ago.
And that helped the organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It helped in a very big way. The CEO herself got free because she stopped doing this micromanagement, and she didn't even realize she was doing it. She just thought that she's doing the right thing. And when she started delegating and when she started trusting her management team more, there were, of course, mistakes. There were complaints that did come through, but you have to take that as part of the learning. It's part of people coming up. So eventually she had enough free time to be able to set up another business opportunity, a whole vertical in the hotel, which didn't exist earlier. And now they're thriving, doing very well.
That's really nice. And we can see how it can, the value it can add if you're not a control freak, actually.
Yes.
And you also touched upon, you said perfection, that when you start chasing perfection, so can you just, because we all believe that perfection is important and we have to be perfect in everything we deliver in life. So is it okay to choose progress over perfection, or you think a perfection should be it's important? Or
this thing of control freaks is ruled by anxiety and perfection. That's why people start turning into control freaks. And the need to be perfect sometimes doesn't allow you to even get started.
Right.
Something. And it's better to get started and moving than to not start at all. So perfection it's a myth. Even if you look at the greatest artworks in the world, an artist never really finishes a painting. They just stop working on it.
Right.
If you ever do any art, you do a painting, there's no point where you say now the artwork is perfect. Just say, okay, I've done enough and I'm going to let it go. There has to be a point where you can say enough, release. This perfection is a myth. You might draw a fabulous piece of art and you might think that it is perfect. Someone else might walk past without even looking at it.
Right.
So perfection is perception based, it's a myth, and it kills productivity. What you really need to look at is functionality along with aesthetics. And there has to be a point where you say, okay, now let's move on to the next.
Right.
just vital.
So even in the organizations, the people who, they push for perfection, actually it's a myth. So people should, even the leadership should look at in terms of, as you mentioned, functionality and reaching the optimum level. But everything should not be looking at the perfection level. Like, okay, a PPT has to be perfect in all the ways and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to...
If you are working on a PPT,
yes,
you have to give a presentation at 5 p.m. But it's not perfect, so you're not ready. The presentation comes and there's no PPT.
Yes.
Who's won? No one's won, right?
Right.
Or if you work till 4:45 and 4:45 you say, oh God, it's not perfect, but I'm letting it go, and you're struggling. You haven't had time to walk through it, to practice it, to share with your team. The presentation fails. So you'd rather get it functional, doing its job, and balance it with good aesthetics, rather than strive for some mythical perfection which is more in your head than anything else.
Very important, actually, yes, because we all chase perfection, right? So it coming from you, it makes a lot of difference. In fact, I was talking to somebody, she also became a trainer in the past, and she mentioned that she was working in a leading bank in UK, and she was doing everything right. She said, I was doing everything right, and she thought she would be eligible for the promotion. But when she went to her top bosses, they said, you are a hard worker, you are a perfectionist, but we don't see you as a leader.
Right.
Yeah. So, yes. So then she said, she thought that everything she was doing was perfect. And so they said, no. So I just wanted to just check with you as well. And yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
To learn.
Yes. Now, we spoke about control freak, we spoke about narcissists, we spoke about, the other kind of leaders. Now, I would like to touch upon a very large population where I am also a part of, that's the women, right? So, for the women, it's for every woman today who's promoted to a director level in corporate, 2 women at the same seniority choose to quit. Maybe it's more in India. I'm talking more from the India perspective. I'm sure you can, you can kind of validated from the other parts of the world as well. And women are doing more, they're carrying more, recognized less, and leaving faster than ever. So is the system losing its best women, or is the system simply not good enough for them?
So when they leave, where are they going? Are they just falling out of the entire ecosystem, or are they getting other jobs somewhere else?
So I'll give you my scenario. Actually, when I had my daughter, and in those days we had 3 months maternity leave in India, and it was a big challenge. So when I went back to the organization, and so we had made some kind of arrangement where my husband would work in the other shift and I would work in the other shift, so that we could have the baby. Somebody would be there with the baby at home, because we had no support system, and I didn't want to put her in the creche. It was too early. Yeah. She was just barely 3-4 months. But believe me, when I went to my boss and I said, today she's unwell, and there are scenarios when your child is unwell, and the child doesn't get cured in one day. So it may be like a week or so. Yeah. So when I went to the boss, he said, no, because of you, most other women will not be able to take up, will not be given a maternity leave or that kind of leave which you are getting. Because, yes. So I personally felt so bad about it, that is it a crime to have a child? And he said it very clearly, said yes, like 1 day is fine, you can take the child to the doctor, but I can't let you work from home for 4 to 5 days. So it was a very difficult thing. But then I slowly chose to get into the freelancing mode and started working on my own and building on my own stuff, actually. So I'm just personally speaking about my scenario, actually. And yeah, it is, especially in India, it's a challenge. So yeah. So I don't know where they go, but I personally am saying I thought, okay, that's good to leave, because 9 hours, it was too long a shift. And there are people raise question that, more than 2 days, okay, that's getting too much. Why don't you do something? Why don't you take a maid? Why don't you have a help? So people don't empathize with you. So,
yes, there's challenges in everything. And that's something India has to figure out. I don't think it's that bad here. I'm sure that India will also figure it out slowly and come to the pace of the rest of the world. India is moving very, very fast. And the way that Indians are progressing and the output that India has. If you look at the best CEOs, the biggest companies in the world, Google, Pepsi, IBM,
Even the
World Bank, Microsoft, they're all Indians. So, and where are these Indians coming from? They're all coming from our institutions, our companies. So I think that Indians are just catapulting ahead, doing very, very well. 50 years ago, we were literally a poor country.
Right.
And look at where we are now. So in this churning and in this, there's bound to be some issues that crop up like what you just mentioned, but they'll get sorted out. It's a question of a couple of decades, I guess, before it finds its space.
So it's just a matter of time, actually. But
I think so.
Thankfully.
And there'll always be bumps. That's natural.
Yes.
There's never going to be a point of time when everyone's happy with everything.
But do you come across such women leaders who have those kind of challenges, who face these kind of challenges?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes.
We do. We have cases where women have women-centric issues that are unique to women. And those are challenges. That's just a reality. And it depends on the organization you are in, how they're looking at it, what is the employees' culture, what's the culture, what is the organization culture. All that does play a role. Like if you are a well-educated, articulate lady like yourself, but you're in a company where people are still not from that background, they're from a different background which says why she got a job, she should be at home cooking, then you're still going to face those challenges, right?
Yes.
It's just part of the India growth story.
No, but when would you like to narrate any of those, the women leaders who have walked up to you, and what kind of challenge they speak about?
Honestly, at the moment, the women leaders who I'm working with, they just talk about business issues. They don't really have these as issues. It's they've figured out how to balance their life, how to take care of their kids, and that's why they are in these senior positions. That's why they work their way up. So I haven't come across many, and maybe they go to a female therapist for these issues, but pretty much.
I'm sure. Women need to vent out somewhere, and they need somebody to hear, actually.
Yeah, and
So,
I don't think I'm an expert on women's issues at all.
In fact, I was reading on LinkedIn the other day, and somebody just wrote, I think she kind of helps women, that a very senior lady, if she works in a top MNC, not in India, but she's an Indian. She's very happy, she's working and she's very successful in her career, but still when she goes back home, she still doesn't get that kind of treatment from her husband or even the mother-in-law. So those issues still exist and she still feels lost, actually.
Yeah, I believe that totally. I read somewhere that when dowry and bride burning became, when the cases were looked at, they found that the biggest perpetrators of dowry harassment and bride burning and torture of brides was the mother-in-law.
Yes, that's really sad.
Right? And they themselves gone through it. So it's quite common that when one goes through a cycle, you tend to repeat it till the cycle is broken.
And the other person has to bear the brunt of it, unfortunately.
That's true.
Thank God. So, Captain, I'll ask you another question. Indian professionals are raised to follow instructions. I'm sure you're aware of it, right? We respect hierarchy and never challenge authority. Now, is that a cultural conditioning, the foundation of high performance, or is it actually the root cause of burnout, toxic workplaces, and a generation of leaders who have never been told the truth about themselves?
So India, we have this massive population, right? And because of that population, there is more generalization and there's less focus on individuals because you have so many people. There's this client of mine here who I was consulting for and a tech company. Something came up about Indian engineers and he was flabbergasted because he said that he got a bunch of resumes from some Indian engineers And they all had given the same extracurricular activities, that they play hockey, they play football, and they play some team sports.
Right.
So during the interview, he asked them, he said, "So you play hockey?" And he said, "Yes." "And do you really play hockey?" "No, I don't play hockey." "Then why did you put that there?" "Oh, I put it because my consultant told me to put it as a team sport." So he was flabbergasted. At the same time, he was impressed with how honest they were, that they actually told them who told them to put it and why they put it.
True.
Right. So when you're talking about something happening on this side of the world where populations are much lesser,
Yes.
you can focus, even a class teacher can focus on individual students. Whereas in India, since there's such a dense mass of people, it's more or less generalized. And then of every mass, there's always one or two exceptions, probably neurodivergent people who break out and become those superstars. Whether it's a Chamath Paliyappa or Naval Ravikant or a Indira Nui or a Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella. There's always some of these who come out. But the mass is like a brick in the wall churn that happens.
That's a profound point, actually. And yeah. Now, I'll move to your podcast. Vinod, you have been doing your own podcast, and it's called Socratic Satsang. Now, where Socrates meets Indian philosophy. Now, ancient thinkers had more clarity about good life than modern CEOs do. So, what have we lost, and how do we get it back? And you did also tell us a little more about the podcast.
Okay, so the podcast is launched by my wife and I.
Right.
The reason we have this name Socratic Satsang is because Socrates came up with this thing called the Socratic method, wherein you just ask questions. You keep asking questions without judgment, without jumping to conclusions, wherein you can peel back layers and layers by asking more and more questions till you get to the truth. That's a Socratic method. Satsang is this ancient Indian practice where community elders and members got together. And satsang is a Sanskrit word which means in the company of or the presence of the truth. So they had discussions, they had lectures, they had all kinds of things going on. The purpose was to arrive at the truth. And Socratic Satsang merges those two concepts. And we don't jump to conclusions, we don't take sides. We're more about asking questions, and we're about understanding that there's not one truth, there can be multiple truths. And we don't have to put someone down because we don't agree with them. One of the main purposes of our podcast was we live in this deeply polarized society wherein if someone doesn't agree with your point of view, then you just label them as bad or stupid or brainless or evil, right? Whereas we got to understand that we are all just people.
Correct.
And most people are pretty good. So we get good once in a while, but on and on, we're all pretty good people. So we can have a diverse opinions. We can disagree with each other. We can discuss without putting someone down. And we want to create the platform which allows for free thought, for diverse opinions without making anyone feel uncomfortable or threatened. That's the concept of the podcast. And
that's very thoughtful.
Exactly. We've done, I think, over 100 episodes. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Audible. And so far, it's doing pretty well. We've had some fabulous thinkers on as guests. We've had some fascinating discussions with our panel. It's been lovely. And yes, while I agree with you that the ancient thinkers were pretty deep, you also got to understand that the noise levels now are more.
Yes.
So
I
when
agree.
Socrates came out with something, or if Plato came out with something, they, it was the first time anyone had thought of those ideas,
Right.
right? So they stood out a mile high.
Mhm.
But today, almost everyone has access to that kind of information.
Mhm.
So the baseline from which the rest of us start,
Mhm.
somewhere around where Socrates and Aristotle ended. You know, if
Right.
they stood so high above their
Right.
population, most of us started about this level. And back then, there was, everyone couldn't be heard.
Right.
But today,
Right.
almost anyone
Can be,
has
yes.
access to turn themselves into influencers or
Right.
get platforms through WhatsApp, through YouTube, through Instagram, through TikTok. So there's so much noise that we don't realize how much genius is out there right now. There's a lot of wonderful ideas. And I wouldn't say that we are behind. I'd say we've progressed. You even think of the luxury that a king had 1,000 years back. Most luxurious king. A normal person living today on this side of the world or in India lives a better life than a king 1,000 years back.
Absolutely, I would agree. Yes.
You know what I mean? You're safe, you're secure, you're getting your meals, you don't have someone coming to night you in your bed.
Yes.
So they didn't have TVs, they didn't have the shoes you wear, they didn't have the cloth as soft as what you're wearing.
Right. In fact, Louise Hay, the famous speaker, she she says that even the washroom, the bathroom is a luxury because even the kings and the queens never had that actually.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yes.
I think we've advanced quite a lot. Quite a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so you feel that it's a very different world altogether, right? We have to be
Yes.
thankful.
Different
Yes.
world. Our bottom line is way above their end line.
Mhm.
We start way above where they ended.
Indeed.
Big difference. Big difference. It's tough to compare the two.
That's nice to know. Now I think I'm retouching the same question on toxic culture actually because it's everywhere. In fact, if you see many of the employees, many of the youngsters leaving their career, jobs at 13, saying, "I want to take a retirement. I want to start something of their own." So there's an increasing number of startups, I think, who are just starting because they're not happy in the work culture. So this toxic culture, as reports suggest, is 10 times more powerful than the salaries predicting.
Yes.
Why people leave. So yet most companies still respond to attrition by raising the pay. But why are leaders so deeply, stubbornly reluctant to look into the mirror?
So I wouldn't put that entirely on leaders.
Yeah.
If you look at human beings are driven by three main imperatives.
Mhm.
Okay, one is survival. The second is reproduction.
Mhm.
And the third is dominance.
Mhm.
Almost everything we do is influenced by these three. One is we want to survive. That's super important. The second is reproduction. That's why you have so many sex scandals going on all the time, everywhere. You can't help it. You put people in a room, something or the other happens. And the third is dominance. Human beings tend to have this nature. It's not just human beings, even animals have this nature that they want to dominate. So we even cut grass on our lawns, as you can see outside, because we want to dominate that also, right? When you put people together in a room, invariably one tries to dominate the other, and then there's a clash. And that's part of the human condition. If you look at kingdoms 2,000, 3,000 years ago, whether it was kingdoms in India, whether you look at the world population, there were many kingdoms all trying to fight with each other. Okay, then we were colonized. What did the colonizers do? Even they fought with other colonizers. There were world wars over it. In families today, you have bickering. One daughter-in-law wants to dominate the other daughter-in-law. One mother-in-law wants to dominate somebody else.
Very
Right?
true.
So that kind of friction is part of any group of human beings. Some people are evolved enough or spiritually grown enough to be able to see it, to call it out, and to step out of it.
Right.
Some people want to play in it because that's their nature. And I don't see a situation where that is ever going to go away as long as we are still this level of human beings. There'll always be friction. That's just natural. Just natural.
But
And
don't you? I completely agree. But don't you think it has increased more than what it was?
People together, that's going to happen. And then on top of that, you load performance pressure. You give some people authority. You make some people answerable. So all those are leverages you can push on the other person. If I'm one of those who needs to dominate and I'm a high anxiety person, that means I turn into a control freak and I become your boss. Then you've got help from me. I mean, I'll be trying to dominate you. I'll be using all the deadlines. I'll be taking away your authority. That such things happen. And yes, high pressure situations, closed groups, it's just part of you'll find it in the US Congress, you'll find it in companies, you'll find it in parliament, you'll find it in companies and in families. It's just a reality of human beings.
So we have to accept it. I mean,
you have to learn to still get what you want while being in that environment. I mean, I can give you a off example.
Right. Yeah.
A similar example. So I don't drink alcohol. Okay, just for me, alcohol, probably because I'm autistic and I have Asperger's. So alcohol just doesn't work for me. I was told at a young age in India that, you're getting into business. If you want to do well, you have to learn to drink. You have to be able to sit with people at bars and have drinks.
Because it's a form of networking, right? So the most... Yes. I think it still exists. Still, there are people who have that notion. Thankfully, very few.
Yeah, so, thankfully it's reduced now. But back in the day, it was a big deal in India. And even here, this side of the world, it's quite common. But I don't. So I figured that I still have to get the job done. I still have to get business. I still have to get clients. I still have to influence people without drinking. Right? And I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to figure it out. That's where your capacity shows, correct? Or your skill shows. So similarly, if you don't want to get into toxic environments, politics, but you have to learn to still figure your way out inside that. You just have to. I remember I was conducting trainings in a company in India about 25 years ago. And I was doing regular trainings. That company had 7 verticals, and I was training in all 7. And one day, in one of the verticals, a new training executive joined, a young lady. And my dealing with her was slightly awkward. I just got an awkward feeling. And then one day she called and she asked me for 5 or 6 different proposals of different training programs. Like, okay, send them across, but I still felt there's something wrong, there's something awkward. So I sent across those proposals and continued with work on the other verticals. And one day I was training in one of the other verticals and during lunch talking to the manager. And he said, you know that HR lady, what she's done with your proposals? And I said, I don't know. What has she done? He said, her fiance is a wannabe trainer. She's taken all your proposals, copy-pasted them on his letterhead, given a 20% discount and submitted them to herself.
My God.
Has given all the trainings to her fiance. So, how do I combat that, right? She's the authority, she's sent it. I can't do anything about it.
Right.
So, I was more or less helpless. But it was a matter of, I think, 4 or 5 months, and they all came back to me because the guy couldn't deliver.
Right, yes.
They could copy paste, but they couldn't deliver.
Yes.
somewhere, even in toxic environments, your performance, the way you conduct yourself does matter, and it does take you where you want to go.
So it's just a matter of time. If you stick to your to your deliverables and to your quality of work, and that
Yeah,
would be
you better be good at your job. You better be brilliant. Then start to hold a brilliant person down.
So people might copy and paste, but they can't copy and paste your skills. At least yeah, they can.
Delivering is a different thing altogether, right?
Yes. So now, we have narcissist CEOs. We spoke about them. We spoke about there was a where you justified and you clarified exactly that there's nothing called narcissist. You kind of clarified, and there were control freaks we spoke about. Then we spoke about the workshop leaders who perform change but practice nothing, and system actively pushing out its best women. Now, is corporate leadership in crisis, or who's actually responsible for fixing it? I think. Do we need to answer this, or do you think?
I'd say it's, corporates are always in a state of flux. We are evolving, we are learning, we are absorbing new technologies, we are reaching new markets, new cultures. Our workforce is changing. So it's in a constant state of flux. 30, 40 years back, you worked in a mill in India. Now everyone's working in a high-tech company. They're talking to clients in Europe, in US, in Canada. So we're evolving constantly, and it's just a process of constant evolution. And we go through ups and downs here.
So now coming to the final question, we have spent almost like more than an hour talking about we have spent more than an hour talking about the leaders we just spoke about and the corporate culture, and and how is Vinod, how yourself, how the life is, how you're living the life, the way you're coaching them actually. So basically my question is that you have been coaching multiple people, and now we're at the end of the discussion. So how have you personally been living that life, that you have been coaching?
Okay.
Yes.
So as I mentioned in the beginning, I started from virtually nothing and just doing a few programs. And I wound up growing quite a bit over the years. And I tasted some good success. I was consulting for large organizations. I traveled all over the world. And at some point, this was in my early 40s, I had made more money and got more acknowledgement, celebrity status, fame than I was prepared for. Okay. So somewhere in that, I got lost. And I also probably lost sight of my purpose and what I was trying to do. This would be in my mid 40s. And at some point, I wasn't diagnosed with autism right till my 50s. When I was younger in India, on 2 separate occasions, I went to therapists and asked them to figure out what's going on with me. And in both cases, they could not diagnose me correctly. So I was undiagnosed. And as the work piled on, I was just going to take more and more because I was in this loop where I just wanted to achieve more. And I wound up taking on more than I could handle. And eventually it was a sensory overload because of my autism. My senses have limitations. And that sensory overload just got me to a point of complete burnout. And that's when I realized, or that's when I decided to migrate from India, because the pressure on me was beyond my capacity. So I left from there and moved to this side of the world. And when I came here, the burnout was in full swing. And here I wound up getting diagnosed as being autistic, having Asperger's. It was very hard for me to understand initially because I had virtually no understanding of autism.
And it's hard to kind of believe also that we have, being an Indian,
understand what it really meant. Initially, when I was told, I was like, I can't be autistic. Autistic people have a problem speaking, they can't maintain eye contact. I'm not like that.
Absolutely.
Then I was slowly educated. I mean, I got educated on what autism is and what Asperger's syndrome is and what I have. And at that point, I decided to put brakes on everything that I was doing in my life, step back and remodel my life to match my neurological wiring. So since then, that's how I've led my life. And it's worked out brilliantly. So I took this hiatus and I moved to a very calm area, which was nice for my senses. I had this large property, lots of nature. And as I mentioned, dogs, love my dogs. So reworked my entire schedule, my lifestyle, my diet, everything to suit my neurological wiring. And today, I can pretty honestly confess that I am living exactly as I would advise me to live. I don't kill myself with work. When I work, I charge decent money, so I don't have to work 7-8 days a week. I work when I want to. I've made decent investments, so that sense of security is there. My partner is a highly educated lady who's a psychiatrist herself, so she understands my wiring and makes allowances for me. Have a fabulous support system, really fabulous support system that spreads through US, Canada, and India. Great relationships. Take care of my health. So yeah, overall, I can say that I'm in a state of gratitude right now, that I'm able to enjoy what I really want to have in my life, and I'm able to pick the kind of work I want to do.
So, that's wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, but I had to go through that whole burnout, the whole fall before working my way up, and it took a few years to do that. It wasn't a overnight
process, but definitely, yeah. So it's great. Like it's almost like an ideal life, something that you have been coaching people for. Actually,
at the moment, yeah,
live a very balanced and peaceful life.
Yes, very peaceful, very balanced. Yeah, so far so good.
That's great, and I pray it continues. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Vinod. It brings us to a full circle. So we really from right back from where we started, and we discussed everything, and it was a very honest and a very very insightful discussion. So thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure to have you today in this show and talk to you, and we will look forward to more such meaty conversations.
Yep. Thank you, Kavita. Loved your questions. Loved your ability to plumb and go in depth. And it's lovely to have conversations with somebody who can dive deep and who is so curious. Thank you. Thank you. It's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hope to see you soon.
Sure. Thank you. So thank you so much, Captain. This is